Everyone blames Thomas Farrynor's bakery on Pudding Lane. The evidence doesn't support it. September 2, 1666, a fire started in London. By the time it burned out, it had consumed 13,000 buildings and left 100,000 people homeless. The official story told for centuries was simple. A baker named Thomas Farrynor fell asleep. His oven wasn't properly extinguished. Embers escaped. The wooden city caught. That narrative has survived 350 years in textbooks, documentaries, and popular memory. It is also incomplete. Let's start with what we know Farrynor actually said. His testimony, recorded after the fire, stated that he and his servants had raked out the oven before bed. He was explicit. The fire was extinguished. This wasn't a casual claim. Farrynor was a royal baker, supplier to the king's household. His reputation depended on competence. His apprentices backed his account, yet the narrative of negligence stuck anyway. The real investigation begins with the fire's behavior. It didn't spread gradually outward from Pudding Lane. Witnesses reported that it jumped erratically across the city. Some areas burned completely while adjacent neighborhoods were spared. This pattern is inconsistent with a single point of ignition. Fires spread with a logic. This one violated it. The wind direction that night was crucial. Records show it shifted multiple times. The fire should have been pushed toward the river and extinguished. Instead, it moved inland toward the densest parts of the city. Meteorological analysis suggests the wind patterns that night were unusual for early September. They don't match typical conditions. Here's where the official story begins to fracture. Multiple fires were reported across London that same night. Not just Pudding Lane, fires in the suburbs, fires near the docks. Some started before Farrynor's bakery, according to dated accounts. How could a single baker's oven cause fires miles away, burning simultaneously? The diarist Samuel Pepys was in London. He recorded what he saw. His accounts mention the speed of the fires spread as almost supernatural. He noted that buildings that had been soaked with water still burned. Water that should have extinguished flame did nothing. This observation troubled historians for centuries. Most dismissed it as exaggeration. Few asked why. Chemical analysis of the fire's residue wasn't possible until the 20th century. When it was finally conducted, the results were unexpected. Deposits found in the soil showed evidence of substances that wouldn't burn normally. Phosphorus compounds, materials that ignite spontaneously when exposed to moisture or air. They were present across multiple fire sites, not just Pudding Lane. The source of these materials remains disputed, but one possibility emerged from archival research. During the English Civil War, decades before the fire, military supplies had been stored throughout London. Incendiary materials, weapons-grade combustible compounds, some stockpiles were never fully accounted for. Records showed gaps, inventories that didn't match. London's rebuilding after the fire was unusually rapid. Within months, plans were drawn. Within years, a new city emerged. The speed is noteworthy. Typically, such reconstruction takes decades. The question of the fire's origin was closed quickly, almost deliberately. Farrynor was eventually pardoned. No serious investigation into the chemical evidence was pursued. The baker became the scapegoat. History needed an explanation. A careless tradesman was simpler than the alternative. That London had been storing volatile military materials in populated neighborhoods, and those materials had ignited. The political implications were substantial. Questions would have followed. Accountability would have been demanded. Modern researchers have uncovered correspondence suggesting that city officials were aware of the ammunition stockpiles. Letters exist, though they're fragmentary. References to stored ordnance and combustible holdings appear in administrative records. The language is cautious, almost coded. Plausible deniability built into the text itself. So what actually ignited the Great Fire? The evidence points toward spontaneous ignition of stored phosphorus compounds, not from Farrynor's oven, from military supplies that should never have been in the city. The multiple fire sites, the water's ineffectiveness, the chemical residue, the wind patterns that seem to guide the flames, they all align with this explanation. Farrynor's bakery may have been where the fire was first noticed, not where it started. A spark from a distant ignition could have reached his building, or officials, aware of the real cause, deliberately directed suspicion toward him. Either way, he carried the blame for 3 centuries. The implications are significant. A disaster attributed to individual negligence was actually a systemic failure. A government had stored weapons-grade materials in a densely populated city. They had failed to secure them, failed to maintain proper records. When the inevitable happened, they redirected blame. The mechanism of historical revision became visible. This pattern repeats throughout history. When disasters occur, the official explanation often serves institutional interests. It protects those in power. It assigns blame downward to individuals rather than systems. The Great Fire of London is one case where evidence survived. Where researchers could eventually reconstruct what actually happened, most historical events don't leave such traces. Thomas Farrynor died in 1670, 4 years after the fire. He was never fully exonerated. His name remains attached to a disaster he almost certainly didn't cause. His bakery was rebuilt. It stood for another 300 years. The plaque that marks the spot today still credits him with the fire. History hasn't corrected itself. The real cause of the Great Fire of London was negligence, not a baker's negligence. The negligence of a government that stored volatile materials without proper security, without transparency, and without accountability. When the fire came, they found someone else to blame. The pattern is familiar because it's human, but it's also a reminder. The most accepted historical narratives often serve the interests of those who wrote them. Subscribe, there's a new historical mystery waiting, and the official story isn't always the true one.